liberals who secretly endorse Herbert Hoover, and gentlemen, there are a lot of myths involved in liberal axioms, and another liberal axiom vomited out on a regular basis is that free trade is causing massive job losses in these United States. It's evil outsourcing that is killing the U.S. economy, not mounting debt, taxes, entitlement programs, burdensome regulations, taxes on investment income and capital, or healthcare costs. It's none of that. It's free trade, of course. Most Republicans are still supportive of free trade, although there has been some increasing ambivalence on the GOP side, and I concur with Daniel Griswold, who concludes that most of it is because of misinformation and people falling for cute sound bites from troglodytes like Pat Buchanan and Katie Couric, people who are clueless on free trade. The vast majority of Democrats, this includes McStupid, the unemployed janitor from Chicago, aren't supportive of free trade, nor do they understand the economics of it, or know how many senators there are. You will get a lot of cute, unreferenced sound bites, but not much meat and potatoes. Let's first examine and undermine the contention that this country is indeed practicing rampant free trade. One of the few good things about the Bush administration was his support of free trade. Trade with other countries expanded greatly during the Bush presidency, but still has a long way to go. At least 266 bilateral or regional trade deals are in force, according to the WTO, and there are roughly 100 or more of which the WTO has not yet been formally informed. The U.S. is a party to only 5 of the 64 trade pacts that have been taken effect since 2005. With Australia, Morocco, Bahrain, Oman, and Peru. In contrast, 8 of those 64 deals involve the EU, and Japan has signed 9. Overall, the U.S. has trade deals with only 17 countries, including Canada and Mexico, under evil NAFTA. The U.S. has 299 active anti-dumping and countervailing duty measures in these United States, restricting or prohibiting imports from 43 different countries. We have all sorts of restrictions on imported textiles, clothing, footwear, foot products, agricultural commodities, lumber, steel, pickup trucks, tobacco, and many, many more products, including tires from China. The Democrat-controlled Congresses of the last 4 years have let FTAs with Taiwan, Colombia, South Korea, and Panama languish. One must not forget about Bush's tariffs on foreign steel, and on the way out the door slapped a 300% tariff on French cheese in retaliation for the EU banning U.S. beef containing hormones. Let's get to another liberal canard. So now that you know we're not practicing rampant free trade. Hello. Let's go to another libtard canard. Manufacturing is dying or dead. Unfortunately, I've heard this from a few Republicans, and it's alarming. According to William A. Strauss, senior economist for the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, the United States still remains a manufacturing powerhouse. The nation's factories, he says, are just more efficient. Between 1950 and 2007, manufacturing output in these United States increased by 600%. How can that be? Liberals know something else is true. Yet the nation today has only 14 million manufacturing jobs, roughly the same number as 1950. How can this be? According to Strauss, automation increased worker productivity are the keys. For instance, 184 workers in 2009 produced as much as 1,000 workers did in 1950. Worker productivity is the main reason why manufacturing share of GDP has declined. The greater efficiency of the manufacturing sector afforded either a slower increase or an outright decline in the prices of this sector's goods. This allowed manufactured goods to be less costly to consumers and led to the manufacturing sector's declining share of GDP. With the exception of the recession of 08-09, the Bush-Obama recession, when all U.S. economic sectors took a hit, U.S. manufacturing has been breaking its own record year after year with respect to output, value-added profits, returns on investment, exports and imports. U.S. factories are the world's most prolific, accounting for 21.4% of global manufacturing value added in 2008. 21.4% of global manufacturing value added in 08. China accounted for 13.4%, so if you figure that out per capita, we're way ahead. Here's Walter E. Williams, the always brilliant Walter E. Williams on free trade and manufacturing. Quote, since there is no moral argument for preventing one person from trading with another, anti-traders shift their argument to a patriotic appeal, such as suggesting we're losing our manufacturing sector. That doesn't square with the facts, according to a report by William Strauss, again, senior economist for the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, titled Is U.S. Losing Its Manufacturing Base? Again, I'll have all the links underneath. The answer is no. In each of the last 60 years, U.S. manufacturing output growth has averaged 4% and productivity has averaged 3%. Manufacturing is going through the same process as agriculture. In 1900, 41% of American workers were employed in agriculture. Today, only 2%. Oh, our agriculture has been outsourced. And our agricultural output is greater. 41%, 2% more output. In 1940, manufacturing jobs employed 35% of workers. Today, it's about 10%. Again, because of huge productivity gains, manufacturing output is greater. The decline in manufacturing employment is not limited to these United States. Since 2000, China has lost more than 4.5 million manufacturing jobs. In fact, 9 of the top 10 manufacturing countries, which produce 75% of the world's manufacturing output, the U.S., Japan, Germany, China, Britain, France, Italy, Korea, Canada, and Mexico, have lost manufacturing jobs, but their manufacturing output has risen. Another libtard canard bites the dust. Data from the New York Federal Reserve Board suggests that job losses from free trade aren't accelerating at all. The increase in U.S. jobs sent abroad has averaged about 30,000 per month since 2001. That's through 2003 when this came out. A deceleration from the monthly average increase of 45,000 jobs during the period from 97 to 2001. And listen, our comprehensive estimate of the number of jobs embodied in U.S. net imports is small relative to total employment in the United States, 2.4% of the total at most, both historically and in recent years. So we're not seeing anything out of the ordinary, according to the New York Federal Reserve Board. That dispenses with another libtard argument that manufacturing is dying because of free trade. It is not. Now let's get to something else, the fact that free trade creates a lot of jobs here. Liberals often leave that out, probably because they don't know. In a recent report entitled Opening Markets Creating Jobs, Estimated U.S. Employment Effects of Trade with FTA Partners, end quote, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, the evil U.S. Chamber of Commerce, of course, points out that more than 17 million American jobs depend on trade with U.S. FTA, Free Trade Agreement partners, and in 2008 alone, over 5 million jobs were created by the boost in trade unleashed by the FTA's Chamber President and CEO Tom Donahoe appropriately remarked, I defy anyone in town to name another budget-neutral government initiative that has generated anything like this number of jobs. End quote. It's true. The U.S.-China Business Council has performed a valuable public service by marshaling state-by-state figures on exports to China. In its annual survey released this morning, this was several months ago though, the U.S. CBC documents that 19 states exported $1 billion or more in 2009 to China, which is now the third largest market for U.S. exports. If Obama wants to increase exports, there's free trade with China right there. But he's an idiot. In a statement accompanying the report, the U.S. CBC noted that exports to China declined only slightly in 2009 compared to a 20% plunge in exports to the rest of the world. Top U.S. exports to China last year were computers and electronics, agricultural products, chemicals, and transportation equipment. The U.S. CBC figures tend to undercut complaints that China's currency policies have stymied U.S. exports to that country. In fact, as and this was Daniel Griswold speaking, argued in an op-ed in the Los Angeles Times last week, since 2005, U.S. exports to China have been growing 3 times faster than our exports to the rest of the world. Now let's address that politically sensitive trade deficit with China. A few things need to be pointed out. According to the results from a growing field of research, only about 1/3 to 1/2 of the value of U.S. imports from China comes from Chinese labor, material, and overhead. Official U.S. import stats, which pay no heed to the constituent value-added elements, therefore overstate the Chinese values in those imports by 100 to 200% on average. The cited job loss figures are based on import values that are unequivocally overstated, because 1/2 to 2/3 of that value are the cost of the material, labor, and overhead added in other countries including the United States. The Atlantic's James Fallows characterizes this as of the U.S. and Chinese production sharing as following the shape of a smiley curve plotted on a chart where the production process from start to finish is measured along the horizontal axis and the value of each stage of production is measured on the vertical axis. U.S. value added comes at the early stages in branding, product conception, engineering, and design. Chinese value added operations occupy the middle stages, some engineering, some manufacturing and assembly primarily. And more U.S. value added occurs at the end stages in logistics, retailing, and aftermarket servicing. So if you see an iPod made in China, as I'm going to get to here, it wasn't all made in China. Trade stats can mislead as much as inform. For every $300 iPod sold in the U.S., the politically volatile U.S. trade deficit with China increased by about $150, the factory cost. Yet, the value added to the product through assembly in China is probably a few dollars at most. In other words, there's a lot of parts made in places like Korea, the U.S., Japan, etc. Chinese value added is very low in higher technology and more sophisticated electronics exports. It is higher in other products that Americans import from China, according to the findings in a recent NBER paper titled "How Much of Chinese Exports is Really Made in China?" About 50% of the value of a typical cargo container imported in the U.S. from China is Chinese value added, which comports roughly with the estimates undertaken by others. There's another thing they don't know about. And if they did, they wouldn't tell you. But they don't know about it. They're ignorant. Brian Riley crunched the numbers from May's trade numbers, and many libtards are quick to point out that China sent us $29 billion in imports, which accounted for 69% of our trade deficit. Or if you have an axe to grind with Europe and Canada, they sent us $55 billion in imports, which accounted for 130% of our trade deficit. If crude oil is your boogeyman, that's 49% of our trade deficit. It just depends on who you have an axe to grind with, and don't forget to send those millions of jobs created here back to where they came from too. If you want more expensive goods and less competition, endorse Herbert Hoover for president. If you want cheaper goods and more competition, free trade is the way to go. Products that are traded regularly on an international basis have seen real declines in price. The same can't be said of goods that are restricted. My next to last item will be retaliation to Obama's policies due to Obama's ambivalence towards NAFTA and the tariffs he recently slapped on low-end Chinese tires. Those countries are retaliating, which, as Walter E. Williams said, retaliating with tariffs is like shooting a hole in the end of your boat after your partner shot a hole in his end. China already slaps a 30% tariff on imported excavators. It has a similarly high tariff on other vehicles, from mining vehicles to Ford cars, GM trucks, and even Harley-Davidson motorcycles. They increased the chicken tariff to a minimum of 50.3% and a maximum of 105.4% on chicken products imported from the U.S. Although Mexico will remove 16 U.S. products, this was back in August, from the list of 89 that are currently subject to tariffs, 26 will be added for a net gain of 10. Among the new targets, U.S.-produced pork, oranges, grapefruit, apples, corn, pistachios, chewing gum, cheese, ketchup, and chocolate. The new tariffs will affect as much as $2.5 billion in annual sales by U.S. companies in 40 states. So if you want to make the U.S. compete better, free trade is the way to go. Another thing I could recommend, flattening the corporate tax rate and getting rid of all those loopholes that companies utilize. Flatten it at, say, 20%, no more loopholes. If a German and an American company expand in China, guess which company pays the 35% top U.S. corporate tax rate, unless they let them repatriate their earnings? The U.S. company does. The German company would pay the Chinese corporate tax rate, which is much lower. So we're not competing. We have one of the highest corporate tax rates in the world. Lower that to a flat 20% tax, no deductions. Simplify it, just like they should do with personal income. And that, folks, is the facts on free trade, the libtards, and Barack Hussein Obama, and even Ross Perot, the hand grenade with a bad haircut, had it wrong. Have a nice day, and don't thank me now.